what have we got here? Aramis, Milan by Noted Aromas, and Zara Red Rodeo. I'm feeling a little bit leathered. So yes, hello there. This is a slightly different video, but it's going to be part of a new series essentially. I want to look at fragrance notes in a little bit more detail. Some of those big fragrance notes that are in many fragrances, whether it's an old school fragrance like Aramis, which of course is a very popular one, Milan, which is a clone of Tom Ford's Ombre Leather, or Zara Red Rodeo, which is a modern fragrance. Leather is the note we're looking at essentially today, and I want to look at it in a bit more detail. So maybe the origins of why leather came around. Obviously, people think of leather sometimes of things like leather jackets. But how did it become a fragrance note? How has it become such a big thing? Is it still a big thing in 2025, or has we kind of moved away from those old school scents into the modern ones? Obviously, it's still in some today. So what I wanted to do is just look at the news stories, if there's anything in the news, the origins, and yeah, just trying to understand more about these fragrances. Why are they in perfumes? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know, and we're going to look at more over the next few months. But today, it's all about leather. So let's get some research going. I think there's only one place to start. So I'm sitting by my computer at the minute. The origins of leather. When did leather become a fragrance? When was this early story of it being used? Well, actually, it started in the 15 to 1600s. Yes, the 15 to 1600s, but not how you maybe expected it. So, essentially, according to AI, which I've got to help compile my research today, number one, leather goods smelled bad during the 15 and 1600s. So it says early tanning relied on animal fats, urine, smoke, and plant tannins, leaving leather with a harsh, unpleasant odour. The worst offenders were fashionable leather gloves worn close to the face, making the smell impossible to ignore. So actually, in the initial times when leather gloves were being used, the smell of leather was actually horrible. People hated it. The thought of leather gloves had horrible odours that were coming off of them. So actually, initially, it was not even a thought that it was ever going to be used in perfumery. But then it became a little bit different. So to make leather wearable, so it was basically unwearable, such a pungent smell, artisans began scenting the finished leather with strong aromatic materials. Common early ingredients included orange blossom, jasmine, iris, and lavender, spices, clove and cinnamon, resins, benzoin, myrrh, and styrax. So these are the notes that we normally associate in fragrances as well today. These were fragrance notes that we used way before leather was. So they were essentially masking that really unpleasant smell of these leather gloves that were obviously stinking from these tanning methods. So it said these scents didn't make leather smell like flowers. They masked the stench and created a more luxurious impression. So yes, so there you go. Essentially, leather gloves are actually being masked with these other notes that we see in many modern fragrances today. Now, number three, the birth of the glove maker perfumers. Imagine that. What was your job? I'm a glove maker perfumer. What was that? So by the mid 1500s, leather workers who specialised in scented gloves became known as gantiers, perfumers, glove maker perfumers. In France, they were so influential that they helped establish the foundation of the perfume industry in Grasse, originally a centre for tanning. So essentially, because these people essentially scented leather gloves, it started the perfume industry in this area. So yeah, a tanning centre became a perfume centre for yeah, these people who were working on scenting leather gloves. Now, this is when fragrances start to become, or leather becomes a bit more important within fragrances. Scented gloves were prized by European nobility, so we're now hearing about this class difference. Catherine de Medici famously popularised them in France. Perfume leather gloves, belts, pouches, book covers, which are obviously things we still use today, became symbols of wealth, refinement, and elite fashion. Leather does feel something that is a bit expensive, a bit grown up. Again, I always say about a James Bond sort of vibe with it. And here we go. So transition from scented leather to leather as a scent. Over time, perfumers began creating fragrances that evoked the pleasant smell of treated leather itself. This meant recreating the sensation of soft tanned hide, smoke from the tanning process, animal warmth, and resinous sweetness. And this is where the leather notes take shape in the 18 to 1900s. So not that long ago, really. You know, when you think about it, it's pretty modern. Perfumers discovered materials that naturally smelled leathery, including birch tar, smoky Thai Russian leather vibe, castoria, warm aromatic skin light, labdanum and styrax, resinous balsamic, slightly leathery. And you do get those different leather sort of phrases. I know Gucci Guilty Absolute, much more suede leather, and then ombre leather's that fruity leather. So you get very, very different ones. And then leather becomes a full perfume category in the early 20th century. So yes, this is when it became an artistic note. Iconic creations like Chanel Cœur de Russie, 1924, established leather as elegant, sensual, luxurious, and mysterious. So there you go. That is the origins of leather. It was actually initially leather gloves stank, and they were being sprayed with things like, well, the tanning process made them stink, and essentially to mask that iris, jasmine, orange blossom, all those things were being used to mask it. But over time, it became seen as a popular note from these people that essentially made those scented gloves. So there you go. I never knew that, but there are the origins of leather. Right, now on to the next bit. Are there any headlines, stories today about leather in perfumery? So we've looked at the past, we're now going to look to the present. So what is going on with leather in the modern world? Is it a popular fragrance note? Well, there are some stories about it, and I'm quite surprised how much there is. And actually, it sounds like, according to these articles, leather is having a bit of a resurgence. So Coty is leaning into leather big time. This is the first article. In its recent strategy, Coty emphasizes leather as a standout ingredient to differentiate its fragrance portfolio. Instead of using leather just as a base note, which is, let's be honest, we always think it's going to be very much in the dry down, Coty's perfumers are integrating leather from top to base, making the scent more immersive and long lasting. Now actually, Zara Red Rodeo, which is the fragrance I showed you earlier, has it in the middle, has it in the heart of the fragrance. And we are seeing that, and I don't really notice it too much in that sense. So it doesn't overpower the fragrance because leather is a strong note. But it does say leather is being used in both mass prestige and top tier luxury launches. Examples include David Beckham's exquisite leather, Boss Bottle Beyond, Burberry Goddess, which is leather, and Gucci Guilty, which also has leather. Financially, Coty is pushing into fragrance deeply, and now over 60% of their sales is from fragrances. That's unbelievable. So Cowboy Core is the next sort of story. According to Business of Fashion, leather records are part of a bigger Western or cowboy-inspired trend in fragrance. So again, talking more about this trend and this Western cowboy theme. Designers and perfumers are talking about a lot about fleur, cure, flower and leather notes. Leather is being made more feminine or soft, not just rugged. And that is what I'm noticing. Fragrances that have a leather in, you almost don't detect them anymore. But they're there, and they maybe just make things a bit more masculine, but they don't overpower the fruitiness. Like Zara Red Rodeo, it doesn't overpower that strawberry note, it just makes it a little bit more masculine. Several recent launches reflect this Western leather trend. So Hermes Barania Intense, Burberry Goddess again. I'll have to have a look at that one. And Charlotte Tilbury's More Sex have all been mentioned. The Costa leather records is also part of the trend. Leather scent materials like IBQ, birch derivatives are more expensive to source, adding to the premium feel. Again, it's this element of classiness about leather. It always does feel like that expensive note. And again, there's been a release here. The new leash launched Leather Truffle by Trend Perfumes. Again, just releasing more leather fragrances. You know, you've got Armani fragrances here, Joe Malone fragrances. And yeah, it just feels like leather now is something that these designer brands, to be honest, as much as anything, are starting to tap into again. So is that going to be the next trend? We've had this vanilla caramel phase. Is leather going to be the next phase? According to recent research or recent articles, the signs are positive. I wanted to touch on how leather is used in fragrances because, let's be honest, you're not going to put this in a bottle, are you, and then spray it. So how has this accord been made? Well, what it says here, general leather facts: leather is not a single ingredient. It is an accord composed of multiple notes blended to suggest leather. So obviously, in the old days, a lot of these things would have been natural oils, natural products. Obviously, that's changed. There's a lot more synthetic molecules today. It says here the most iconic leather molecule of the 20th century is isobutyl quinoline (IBQ). It's a harsh green, bitter, intensely leathery. It's shaped vintage cypress and old school masculine scents. Modern leather records rely more on saffron-like molecules, and there's one here called saffroline and synthetic musk for a soft suede-like impression. Again, more modern phrases becoming a lot lighter, a lot easier to wear leather essentially. Birch tar, once the defining leather material, is now heavily restricted in many countries due to PAH, carcinogenic compounds. This forced perfumes to reinvent leather from scratch. So yeah, carcinogenic, obviously increasing your risk of cancer essentially, so you don't want that on your skin. So again, a lot of leather now is just essentially a combination of molecules that hopefully are safe synthetics essentially. So I thought that was really interesting. But now then, let's have a look at why these molecules are seen as attractive to some people, because let's be honest, it divides opinion, leather. So what we'll look at quickly now is what makes it seem attractive to some people and the evidence, and what maybe makes people put off by that scent. There's two main reasons essentially why someone might perceive leather as attractive, and the first one I don't really understand how this is the case, but if that's what the science says, then here we go. So many materials used to create leather called castoreum-type notes, musk resin, contain molecules that are structurally similar to compounds naturally found on warm human skin. So some of the compounds that come off, you give off in your skin, essentially are a little bit like the ones in leather, the compounds. This is far too technical for me. We need an Einstein here. But examples: musky molecules resemble skin lipids. Phenolic or animalic molecules overlap with natural body odours at very low, pleasant concentrations. I've never thought my animalic sweat that I get from my run apparently smells like leather. But there we go. Apparently it's got similar compositions, I guess, similar compounds. Resinous and smoky notes mimic the warmth of skin heated by sun or motion. Your brain interprets these cues as human, warm, and alive, which can read as attractive. Now it says here, and this is kind of more a general scent thing and smell in general, unlike sight or sound, scent travels directly to the amygdala and hippocampus, the brain regions responsible for emotion, memory, and instinct. Leather often triggers confidence signals, warm and closeness, and familiarity. These quick subconscious reactions can feel like attraction. So there we go. So essentially the smell goes to a different part of your brain compared to other things like sight and sound, and then that leads to that feeling, that instant sort of, wow, he's an attractive, well put together male. And again, when we think of leather, we associate it culturally with things like leather jackets, expensive handbags, expensive shoes, and it just gives off that vibe of being a well put together person. And again, that can be quite attractive to some people, that classiness. And so let's have a look at the reason why someone doesn't like leather. Why do some people not like it at all? Because I know there's a lot of people that do it. It's certainly not my favourite note. So the key science is based on genes, apparently. So again, going back to the science here of human anatomy. So humans have over 400 different smell receptors, and many vary between individuals. Leather-heavy materials like phenols, quinolines, birch tar molecules activate receptors that some people have more sensitive versions of. This can make leather smell harsher, smokier, medicinal, rubbery, chemically sharp. The same receptors explain why some people love cilantro while others think it tastes like soap, find synthetic musk comforting or find them suffocating, perceive ambergris as sweet or as fishy. Very true. We all get different things, and skin chemistry is very different as well. Things can smell very different on my skin to someone else's. So yes, some people are born with noses that pick up leather's harsher aspects more strongly. I guess it's like taste buds, isn't it, really? I like fruit. My brother hasn't eaten a piece of fruit for 30 years. I've eaten more today than he has probably in his lifetime. Probably just the same thing with smell. And then high sensitivity to phenolic, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and smoky molecules. So science, these molecules can activate brain's danger or smoke detection circuits. So again, leather accords contain tar-like molecules, and some people have the heightened sensitivity to these, so they might think, it smells a bit like fire or smoke. Of course, that can be a bit of a danger signal to us. Obviously, if we smell things like that, it gives off a negative impression. So maybe that is also playing that more psychological sense rather than science specifically in a physiological sense. There's no real studies that say how popular it is in terms of fragrance notes for the public, or a real ranking of how much it's used. However, there is some evidence to suggest, based on industry and trend forecasters, that leather is still very, very much prominently used. The top one being vanilla, musk, amber, ambergris, saffron, oud. Oud's super popular as well. Fig is used more than I thought. Tonka bean, lactonic milky notes, woody notes, and then leather. So leather is probably in the top 10 most used notes even today. Even though it's divisive, if you get the right person that likes it, they love it. And it is a super, super unique scent. It certainly stands out. People know that smell, and it does smell like luxury. So I thought that was really interesting to see that it's still very much prominent in 2025, even if it's not that sweet note that we associate with many modern fragrances. And I think the last thing we'll touch on today, what fragrances do I recommend? If you wanted to try leather fragrances today, what would I go for? Well, I've obviously got the clone of it. My brother's at home today, so I can't nick it. But ombre leather is one of the best. And I would say if you want to try a really nice entry-level sort of fragrance, obviously ombre leather is super expensive. Try this one from Noted Aromas Milan. It smells just like it, and it's a fruitier leather, a much more soft leather essentially, and we're seeing modern fragrances are doing that. The problem is some of these fragrances that do have leather in, you wouldn't detect it, you don't really know what that note is, and this one just smells like strawberry. So I could say, get this, but you're not going to get appreciation of leather. If you really want leather to be the dominant note, try this one. Try any clone of ombre leather, because I think you'll then understand whether you like that scent. I like this one. I think it smells really classy. It goes so well with this jacket. It's the perfect thing to wear, and I smell good. I really like it, but it's not something, again, for anyone who's a bit younger and a light-hearted. You like those sweet scents, you're not going to like leather as a note. Other ones I really like, Gucci Guilty, Absolute. If you've not tried that, that is that sort of suede leather, much more medicinal, really nice, really easy to put off. If you want hardcore leather though, go back with the Palmer leather. Smells like expensive car seats, and that is all I really get from it. It is super, super strong. But leather as a fragrance note, do I love it? No. Do I appreciate it? Absolutely. It's not something I normally reach for, but I'll tell you what, if I'm dressing up, wearing a suit, going to a big formal event, it's certainly on my list, and I'd be wearing it for any situation where I do need to be that little bit more serious. But yeah, not for the gym and not for any fitness fragrance reviews. Well, maybe for the reviews, but not for the gym workout. But I hope you've enjoyed this one today. We're going to look at some more fragrance notes at some point as well, but please let me know which fragrance notes would you like me to go and do some research on. Would you like me to look at a fruity note? Maybe something like an apple, which is very popular, or maybe a spice like a cardamom, cumin, turmeric that's used in a lot of phrases. Let me know which ones you'd like me to do, and I'll go on to those over the next month. We'll make it like a scent advent calendar, which we can touch on over this sort of Christmas period. But thank you very much for watching today, and yeah, hopefully I'll catch you later.